Let's fucking go!
Let's fucking go.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today I'd like to introduce you to what may end up being one of my favorite knives of the entire year of 2024. This is the Gecko Customz Sikorae, and there are going to be 3 flavors that are available. Here, by the way, is the packaging. I'll show you more of that when we get to the tabletop portion of the review. And the reason I like this so much is because, number one, I think Steven Stewart is doing a fantastic job designing some really incredible EDC-worthy pocket knives, meaning they're a great size, they're a great weight, great blade shapes, great pretty much everything. And another reason is I really love the Oz Roosevelt. If you saw that review, I think you kind of caught wind of that. The problem with the Roosevelt is they're hard to get still, not as hard to get as they were, but they're pretty hard to get, and you're still going to pay a lot of money. You're starting at about $750 on the maker's price. And this is substantially less, and it reminds me a lot of playing with the Rosie. Now, it isn't designed like the Rosie. It isn't shaped like the Rosie. If anything, it's a Rosie on a diet. It's like the supermodel Rosie. It's a little bit slimmer, a little bit more sleek, a little bit more slender. It's got the same type of blade window, which allows for almost the exact same flickability. The difference is it doesn't have the harmonics that the Roosevelt does, and I think the harmonics was kind of a big deal for me anyway. I really liked how it sounded and how it felt when it opened up. And the Roosevelt, I believe, if I remember correctly, I haven't handled one since I reviewed it, I do believe that the Roosevelt had a thinner blade stock than this, and I believe it may have even been ground a little bit thinner. So that's going to play a lot into how it feels when you're flicking it out, how it's going to lock up, and how it's going to sound when it does so. This, I think the blade stock is just a tiny bit thicker. So it's got a little bit more weight to it overall, again, from my recollection. And in all honesty, between the 3 variations that he's offering, the standard plain Jane, it looks like the Storm, Fat Carbon, and then the Moss, whichever way you want to go, they all look great, and they all have their own individual kind of personalities. The other great thing is because what Steven does is he modifies knives. You can always choose one and then have Gecko Customz modify it to suit your taste. Maybe you buy the plain Jane and go, you know what, I think it looks great and I don't want inlays, but I'd love to have like a black wash done, a nice black PVD with a nice stone wash, and then maybe have the clip done in satin or maybe anodized green or something like that. And these are all things that are available to you when you buy one directly from them. The way I look at it is this: it's a great size, it's great ergonomics. I mean, even in my large hands, it feels really, really good. And I've got that big choil to choke up into. The action is really nice. The build quality by Bestech is phenomenal. The whole thing was designed and executed extraordinarily well. And for the money that's being charged, I don't see how you can go wrong. As a matter of fact, when Steven said, hey, do you want to check one of these out? This is a brand new model, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. No questions asked. He sends out one of each of the 3 variations, and I open them up, and each one I open, I went, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like this. I like this better. And I ended up messaging him right away. I'm like, you realize you're not going to get all 3 of these back. I'm going to have to buy one of these from you. And he says, yeah, well, that's fine. He goes, they're available now. It's not a pre-order thing anymore. He goes, I am extending the pre-order price for this initial batch of them, so people are still going to save that money. But he goes, yeah, that's fine. We'll work something out. And so I think I've decided that I want to buy Mr. Green here, the moss. Oh, it looks good. It feels good. They're all consistent with their detents and their lockups, which shows to me if I've got 3 of the same knife here and they're all really consistent, that across the range they're probably going to be as well. So I feel a bit more secure in telling you, definitely grab one. You're going to love the action, because it's not like I just got a sample size of one and I have to hope that they got all the rest right for you to get in your hands what I'm experiencing. So without any further ado, let's get to the photography and get to the tabletop review and get some close-up looks at this and discuss all the things that I fell in love with it and why I think you might fall in love with it, and you'll get a chance to decide for yourself.
You seen that gecko crawling around town. You seen that tiptoeing gecko walking all around. Where he going? What's he up to? He's licking his eye, creeping up to you. He's got a long tail, don't make him whip. If you try to catch him, he will let it rip. He'll drop that tail and be gone before the sun comes up and shines its light on this boring ass town. Tiptoeing around Stephen the gecko, he's a clever little Sikorae, and he'll give that eye a lick. You may think that's crazy, but that's just a part of his nature. His nature, his nature. His Sikorae flips open quick. Don't mess around with the slickest lizard in town. This white storm will throw down. You'll get your ass tore up. The toxic moss poison in your mind. But who will know when you're lost to time, stuck in the world of the biggest, the meanest, the Sikorae.
Hey guys, welcome back into the channel. My name is Jim, and if you are all about EDC, this is the place for you. Today we're going to be focusing only on knives, not flashlights and guns and accessories and all that. Today it's going to be knives, and it's going to be a very special knife in my humble personal opinion. It is going to be the Gecko Customz KnifeWorks Sikorae. And this is the packaging that they're going to come in. Quite unique packaging, quite a bit different from not only what everybody else does, but what even Gecko Customz has done up until now. Now, I think what you've got here is something pretty damn special. Let's talk about the name first before we go off into the specs and everything about the knife. First off, Sikorae is a species of gecko. Well, who would have thunk it? The Europlatus Sikorae is more commonly known as the leaf-tailed gecko, which originates from Madagascar. It's interesting because one of the scale options here is toxic moss, because the leaf-tailed gecko is a moss-mimicking animal. They kind of jump and cling to the sides of a tree, and you almost can't see them because they camouflage so well with the moss. So that was definitely a cool stylistic choice there. You have 3 choices. One, which is the toxic moss, which we just discussed. Number 2 is going to be the one that I always refer to as plain Jane, just plain titanium. They're calling it bead blast, and it is a nice, smooth, clean bead blast. And the third is another camo carbon option, and that's going to be the White Storm. The White Storm is super nice. And yep, I just got bit, and that is going to bleed for hours. That'll be fun. Yeah, folks, blood thinners are no fun. Okay, take 2. Let's try this again. I don't really know how far I got before I started bleeding, so let's try this again. Yeah, so I never really knew much about or cared much about geckos at all until a couple months ago when Stephen had me sent out to me to review a knife of his before. And I fell in love with it, and I kind of dug the whole gecko theme. And the only reptiles I've ever owned in my life have been snakes. And I never really cared about lizards. It just wasn't, I don't know, something I was into. But I started doing a little bit of research and, kind of learning the names, because the name of that knife was the Tokay. Now I know that the Tokay is a really cool morph of a leopard gecko, and a particularly mean one, by the way. One of the only mean ones there are. And I kind of fell in love with the little guys. Now I want to get one. I'm going to get a leopard gecko. I just haven't decided on what coloration, what morph, what exactly I want to get yet. So I've spent probably 1 to 3 hours a day for the past couple months doing more and more and more research, learning as much as I can about them. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. So thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Now, let's get into the knife, and only the knife. Now, I mentioned in the intro that I felt that the Roosevelt may have had a significantly slimmer blade, but I don't think that that's the case, actually. I did a little research between doing the intro and then coming out here for this, and the Roosevelt's blade stock thickness is 125 thou. This is 126 thou. So the difference is negligible, but the blade length is a little bit different. The length on the Rosie is 2.9 inches, and that's a good bit shorter than this, which is 3.04 inches. So I think the real difference in the balance and the feel of it is going to be in the fact that the Rosie blade is taller and it's shorter. This is longer, but it's sleeker. And that's pretty much the big differences in how they're set up. Now, let me give you the specs really quickly so that's out of the way and you guys know exactly what you're looking at before I start prattling on about my preferences. Specs on this: overall length 7.37 inches. I'm just going to move these over so I have room to put all that on the screen. Blade length of 3.04 inches with a handle length of 4.33. Blade stock, again, is 126 thousandths of an inch thick. The handle thickness is 453 thou, so just under a half an inch in total thickness. It is a very slightly contoured frame. And the options are going to be in 2 camo carbon options, the Toxic Moss or the White Storm, or you can get into the non-inlay version, which is the Bead Blast. Okay, now that that's done, we'll slide these back over and get them back out here. Now, the way that I look at this is it is one of the perfect sizes for EDC. The overall length being well under 8 inches means it's going to be very pocketable and very easy to kind of hold in the palm of your hand as a closed knife. And he's done a really good job with the ergonomics. Now, I'm not going to knock the Roosevelt in any way. I still think the Roosevelt is one of the best EDC knives money can buy because of the way that it's configured, the feel of it, and everything else. So I like the ergos on the Roosevelt, but they're not fantastic. They're more neutral, right? This is less neutral, and it's a little bit more sculpted, and it's really made to fit the human hand better and in a more comfortable ergonomic way than the Roosevelt. Roosevelts are slab-sided. They're completely flat. This has a very slight, gentle contour. This has a nice finger pocket here. You've got plenty of room back here to rest your ring and pinky fingers on if you have massive hands, or pinky finger on if you have a large to extra large hand. And then another thing that I love is that you can choke up and get into the blade choil. So this is going to be very, very handy. Now, you noticed you're not going to want to just drop the blade, because the back side of that choil, which is the heel of the edge, it's a little sharp. Oh man, I'm bleeding through the Band-Aid already too. Ooh, don't get on blood thinners, kids. No fun. So the ergonomics on this, I think, are a little bit superior to the Roosevelt. Plus, the fact is, again, you're so much less money for this. They're readily available for now. And you've got 3 choices out of the gate. You don't have to wait for a specific drop and then be told, hey, I'm going to make it this way. This is the only way they're going to be for this week's drop. And out of the 1,000 of you that want to get it, 15 knives are going to be available in this configuration that you may or may not want. You may have to wait a week or 2 or a month or whatever for the version you want, and then hope and pray that you're going to get in time to get it. This isn't like that. You go straight to their website, you choose for yourself Bead Blast, White Storm, Toxic Moss, and it's yours. Furthermore,
it gets better.
the fact that Steven is a knife modifier. Gecko Customz is all about modifying and customizing knives. If you picked up this one here, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned it in the intro, and decided, hey man, I want a purple pivot collar with a green pivot, and I want a green pocket clip, and I want the whole rest of the frame done in a dark stone wash, boom. For the right amount of money, you can do that, and he'll do it before it ships. How awesome is that? So you have a lot of customizable choices available. That's kind of neat. And that's something that currently you cannot get on a Roosevelt. You can only get what what Daniel makes available at that moment during that drop. Nothing wrong with that methodology, nothing wrong with doing your business like that, but some people like that and some people don't. So if you're one that's frustrated, this might be a really good way for you to go. And again, the overall profile when the blade is closed is this knife is much slimmer, takes up far less room, not far less, but less room in the pocket. It opens just as well, just as easily. And besides, if you want a gecko engraved on your blade, that's the only way you can get it. That could be a big plus for you. I don't know. So I think all 3 options are fine. I do gravitate more toward the camo carbon inlay options. And I wasn't 100% sure which one I was going to purchase. I still think it's going to be the Toxic Moss. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Toxic Moss. And even though this one bit me, which kind of means the knife claimed you, whatever. I'm not superstitious. I don't care. Overall, I think that this is going to end up being my favorite non-flipper knife of 2024. And I do break it down into those categories because I'm still a mega flipper fan. And honestly, missed opportunity because you had enough room here to leave this a little bit longer. And that would have been the flipper tab right there. And with this beautiful detent on here, yeah, it could have been done. So I really, really, really wish that either this was a flipper or there was a flipper option. Think of the Brian Brown Knives Jaeger M. There were non-flipper versions where you just had the blade window cut, and then you had flipper versions that have flipper tabs. I would have loved to have seen that option, but I think that may have been kind of expensive to go into production with Bestech on doing that, to make 2 different blade options like that. I don't know. I've never had to do that. I've only gone flipper on my production knives. So I guess I'll find out at some point because people are saying this is the way to go. Give me multiple options. So I probably will in the future. One of the things I really love, and I've mentioned this on many knives before that have started doing this, I really like the flat pivot, especially on the bead blasted and stone washed version. It just looks so clean and so modern, It's well executed, done so nicely. I would have liked to have seen a lanyard hole opening back here or a hidden lanyard post, something in that 1/3 or 1/4 coverage backspacer. Yikes. And then another great choice here was going with the blind screwed pocket clip. So there's no exposed hardware holding the pocket clip in place. It is pocketed, slid into that pocket so it doesn't start doing this on you. And on the inside, there will be a screw holding it in. So definitely very well thought out all the way around. And I have to give Steven lots of credit because he's not just throwing any design out there. Pocket clip perfectly accentuates the lines of the knife in the flow of it, the shape of it, the positioning of it, the angle of it, everything that works. Doing an inlay on the lock side. Very few frame locks have an inlay on the back side. Most frame locks are going to be plain like this. And since I started doing my models with that back there, I've started noticing some other companies doing it. I'm not saying anybody else did it because I did it, just saying I'm definitely taking notice of it a lot more. I think it's fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, I think the first time I saw someone do it was probably Enrique Pena on the Mula that I had, which was the Sons of Liberty Gunworks collaboration. That has an inlay on the backside, and it's not seen very often. And it keeps the knife from being boring and plain. I really, really dig that a lot. Boy, that action feels so nice. It's very snappy, very, very fast. Feels great all the way around. And as far as usability, besides just how it's going to carry, I think that the blade profile is fantastic. You've got a nice amount of a belly here, plenty of room to cut. I would have preferred to see the drop point come down further. I like, in most cases, to have the tip of my knife below the midline of the pivot. And that allows me to cut things more easily if I have something laid out that I'm cutting maybe into strips, or I'm cutting into packages. Instead of having to go all the way up here to get to that tip, I only have to maybe go this far, and then I've got the tip. But that is a personal preference. I'm sure many of you are cocking your head to the side like a Labrador Retriever going, what the hell's he talking about?
What? No.
Everybody has different preferences. That's one of mine. So I like the way it feels. I like the way it carries a lot. I've been carrying this one now for the past 3 or 4 days. It is fantastic in the pocket. The weight is almost nothing. The feel in the pocket as far as can I get my hand around it and just kind of have my hand in my pocket and not feel like this is really in the way. Yep, it feels great. So there's not really anything that I can knock on this. And I hate being like that. I hate being the guy that comes out and goes,
Everything about this knife is perfect.
And I'm not saying it's perfect. It's perfect for me, for what my needs are, absolutely. It fits my hand very, very well, especially when I choke up into the finger choil. It's a really fantastic design, and I'm glad I had a chance to play with one of these because I was already curious when I saw him putting up the design, showing everybody the CAD. This is what I'm going to be doing in the future. And I went, oh man, I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be a bit small. That's the same thing I felt about the Roosevelt. I'm like, oh man, that is really small. I'm not going to like that at all. I've got big hands. And I was wrong on both. This ends up being a really nice size and one that I feel somebody could carry as an everyday carry item and not feel the need to swap it out often. So that's my thoughts on the Sikorae. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you get one of these, or if you've already got one because they've already begun shipping, please leave a comment down below and give us your feedback. Did I misinterpret this knife at all? Do you feel that it fits the EDC roll as well as I say it does? Is it a good size? Do you like the form factor overall? And how's it been treating you? Please let us know, because I think that hearing from lots of people in the community is more important than just one loud voice on the other side of a camera. Anyway, with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'll see you on the next video while I continue to bleed.